All right, let's dive right in. We're going to talk about a massive shift that's happening in business, and it all comes down to something called an API. Now, if you're not a developer, don't worry. Just think of an API like a waiter at a restaurant. You don't go into the kitchen yourself, right? You tell the waiter what you want, and they bring it to you? Well, APIs do that for software. They let different apps talk to each other. But here's the big idea we're exploring today. They're not just technical plumbing anymore. They are becoming strategic business products. So let's pull back the curtain and see how this is reshaping, well, pretty much everything.
And to really get a sense of the scale here, let's just start with a number. $14.2 trillion. That's the projected contribution of APIs to the global economy by 2027. That's not a typo. This is not some niche tech trend. We are talking about a fundamental rewiring of how value is created and exchanged across the entire planet.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. APIs have literally moved from a line item in the IT department's to-do list to a major topic on the C-suite's agenda. The conversation is no longer, hey, do we need an API for this? It's now, what is our API product strategy?
Now, check this out, because this is where it gets really interesting. You see this explosive growth, right? From over $5 billion to almost $33 billion in just a handful of years. But here's the thing. This chart is just showing the market for the picks and shovels, the tools you need to manage APIs. The real economic value, that $14 trillion number we just saw, that comes from the gold itself, all the new businesses and services that these APIs make possible.
So, you've got this massive opportunity just sitting there. What's stopping every company from cashing in? Well, it usually boils down to one huge, incredibly common problem, the absolute chaos of what's called API sprawl.
And you know what? The problem, it really starts at the very top. This is so telling. Almost half of all developers, the folks on the ground actually building this stuff, say their senior leaders just don't get the strategic importance of APIs. And that knowledge gap, right there at the executive level, that's the root cause of so many of the problems that follow.
Because here's what happens when leadership doesn't get it. You get API sprawl. Just picture a tangled mess of extension cords behind your TV, but 1,000 times worse. Every team just creates their own custom connection for every single little project with no central plan. And you end up with this web of redundant, inconsistent, and worst of all, undocumented APIs. It is a complete and total operational nightmare.
And the consequences are really, really severe. This isn't just about being messy. It's expensive and it's dangerous. You're building up this mountain of technical debt that makes it harder and harder to innovate in the future. You're creating massive inefficiencies because teams are constantly reinventing the wheel. And maybe most alarming of all, every one of those unmanaged, forgotten APIs becomes a potential security risk, a backdoor just waiting for an attacker.
Okay, so how do you fix this? How do you untangle that mess and actually turn this liability into a huge strategic advantage? Well, the solution isn't about buying a new piece of software. It's about a fundamental shift in how you think.
It all boils down to this one simple but powerful idea. Stop treating APIs like disposable code you write for a single project and start treating every single one of them like a strategic, reusable product. This one change flips the entire model on its head. It goes from being a cost you have to manage to an asset you invest in.
And this really breaks down that difference perfectly. The old way, an API is a project. It's seen as a cost center. It's built from an inside-out perspective, meaning it's designed based on what's easiest for your internal systems. And ultimately, it's disposable. But in the new model, the API is a product. It becomes a business asset. It's designed from the outside in, focusing entirely on what the consumer, the developer using it, actually needs. And it's built from day one to be reusable across the entire organization.
Of course, a strategy is pretty useless if there's no one in charge of executing it. And the real key, the linchpin to making this API as a product approach work, is a brand new, critical role, the API product manager. Think of this person as the bridge, connecting the users, the business goals, and the technology teams. They own that API like it's their own little business.
Okay, so we've got the mindset, and we've got the person in charge. Now let's get practical. What's the framework for actually making this happen? What does the process of managing an API as a product actually look like day to day?
Well, you can structure it around this simple, continuous cycle called the 4 C's. First is creation, that's identifying a real business need. Then comes consumption, analyzing how people are actually using your API out in the wild. Third is codification, setting the rules of the road for things like governance and security. And finally, curation,
which is the ongoing job of evolving and improving the product based on all that feedback you're getting. Now, inside that first creation phase, there's a really critical technical choice you have to make that has huge strategic implications. And this isn't just about code, it's about making sure your technology actually supports your business goals. And that's the choice of your API architecture. And for the most part, that choice comes down to two big players, REST and GraphQL. REST is kind of the old, reliable standard. It's simple, it's great for predictable data. But then you have GraphQL, which is incredibly flexible. It lets apps ask for exactly the data they need and nothing more. That can be a massive performance win, especially for mobile apps. So making this choice isn't just a tech decision, it's a core part of your product's strategy.
And this is where it all comes together. When you get this right, when you combine that product mindset with the right technical strategy, you're not just making your business more efficient today. You are literally unlocking the ability to create entirely new business models for tomorrow.
Let me give you a really cool real-world example, 5G. So a big telecom company spends billions of dollars building out a physical 5G network. How do they get a return on that investment beyond just selling you a data plan? The answer, you guessed it, is APIs.
Through something called network slicing, they can use software to chop up their big network into tiny virtual slices. So one slice might guarantee ultra-low latency for something critical, like a remote surgery application. Another slice could offer massive bandwidth for a live sports broadcast. The amazing part is, an enterprise doesn't buy a physical piece of the network. They consume that specific capability as a service, and it's all managed and delivered through an API. The API literally becomes the product that monetizes that multi-billion-dollar infrastructure.
So this is really what it all leads to. The future of business isn't just about owning the big physical assets. It's about being able to expose their capabilities as digital products that anyone can build on top of. And that brings us to the final, critical question you should be asking inside your organization. Are you just building disposable code for today's projects, or are you investing in the strategic products that are going to define your future?